Yo, Patrick, what's up, man?
What's up, Joey?
How are you doing, bro? Having a good day?
Yeah, man. Just got a good workout in, post workout fuel. Now I get to shoot the shoot shot or whatever you
You
want
can
to
you
call
can
it
curse,
with
bro. We can shoot the shit.
yeah. In my head I'm like, can we curse on this? We're gonna shoot the shit. We're gonna shoot the shit.
I
So
always preface this when I do interviews, which is very rarely, and I don't even call these interviews. I call them more conversations, and I'm saying that intentionally because I've gotten some backlash from people where they're like, "You're a horrible interviewer. You talk too much." It's like I'm trying to have a conversation with people. But anyways,
right.
it's always awkward hopping in on here because we've been talking for a good 15, 20 minutes before this. But since we are officially live, super happy to have you on here. I know we've been talking about doing this for quite some time. For those of you guys that are tuning in, if you don't know Patrick, PJ, his social media stuff is absolutely amazing. Great coach. I would highly encourage you to go check out his stuff. Do you mind just taking a couple minutes to introduce who you are, what you do, so the audience can get to know you a little bit better?
Yeah, man. I will say like just, typical kind of gym bro growing up. Played sports, baseball, basketball, whatnot, and I was just like always the frail little kid, not little, tall and skinny. You probably relate to that, but started working out in the gym, and I was like, man, there's guys in here that are just like, jacked, and I was like, I want to be that one day. So I kind of started doing that after basketball practice, just getting into the gym, and it grew from there. I ended up going to college for, started in accounting with that as my, major. And then going through some of the classes, I was just like, dude, I am anything but an accountant from a personality standpoint. So I ended up switching to finance because it was more, general. And then, after school, started working in sales, and I was always doing the fitness coaching on the side really for free. Like I just started making meal plans for people and making workouts. So I organically just got into it, doing that. And then I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna start charging people like $20 for a meal plan. And then it was $50, and then it was $100, and it just kind of grew from there. And then, I've been doing it full time now for 2 years. But I started off just like again with the typical gym bro like bodybuilder split, chest, triceps, supersets, drop sets, all the good stuff. And then like you just mentioned, I recently got more into the hybrid training style. With I do a lot of running. I started with a lot of hiking too, just being in Arizona. But now I don't necessarily, it's not in my bio. I'm not a hybrid athlete, in my Instagram bio, but like that's the training style that I resonate most with now. Yeah, been doing coaching full time now for, a little over 2 years, but I've been coaching for 8 years online now.
I was gonna
Um,
crack a joke with the hybrid stuff. You got to move to Austin, Texas, change your Instagram handle to hybrid coach, and wear some of the Nick Bear uh, clothing. Right? I feel like that's
I was
the
gonna say,
traditional.
go one more hat, and then mustache, and then a mustache,
Dude, so
and
take me back.
I'll be
You
set.
mentioned you grew up fairly skinny dude into sports. I relate to that a ton. How'd you get into fitness? Were your parents active? Did they enjoy training? How'd you get into it in the first place?
Yeah. So my mom was like freak athlete. She I don't know, she had some kind of records in high school for stuff, but like for example, I was in middle school and playing basketball, and we were at this one park, and she was like racing me up that hill, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna smoke you. Like, and I got smoked by her, and I was like, holy crap, like, she's a beast. So she's kind of has always been like a leader in that athletic realm, just
Cool.
doing anything. So my dad unfortunately passed away whenever I was 9. So I don't think he was too much of an athlete or anything. But anyways, like on that note though, like, growing up without that father figure, I had always like idolized really strong men just because I didn't have that growing up. And I was like, I always wanted to be that growing up too, especially seeing like, my mom, and then I had two sisters that were older than me. So just seeing men come in and out of life and not being like that strong grown adult male is like, dude, I I don't ever want to I don't want to say feel like weak, but not feel probably like that protector provider type role that I didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
Probably getting a little bit deeper than you were expecting there, but
No.
I think that was a big driver for me initially with like of getting into the gym of like, all right, if I want to be that strong kind of leader, provider, protector in my family, like that starts today. And I saw those guys in the gym. So I was like, all right, if I just spend more time in here, I'll probably look like those guys maybe at some point in my life. And then I just kept doing it. And anytime I asked those guys for advice in the gym that were like, I mean, dude, even today, like these guys were yoked. I was pretty blessed to be around some of these guys in the gym. And I was like, hey, what should I be doing? And they all just said, just keep coming here. And that was it. They were just keep showing up and eventually like you will get there. And I was like,
Yeah.
cool, deal. And I was like 14, 15 at the time. Yeah, now I'm 32, but I've been letting it rip for a while now.
No, that's awesome.
But I think that drive to be that like, provider, protector is definitely what kind of got me into it all initially. And I just fell in love with it. Like, I mean, there's no better feeling than a good workout or a good sweat session.
Dude, isn't that true, right? And a lot of people don't. I think it takes time to actually enjoy it. The reason why I asked that question
Yeah.
is because it sounds like you have, in many ways, been around fitness since you were a kid, right?
Hmm.
Same for me. I don't know if you ever heard, like I've done a couple episodes where I share my story. I was pretty chunky as a kid, um, like pretty overweight, primarily because my parents are from Cuba, so I'm first generation American born in the U.S. And for my mom specifically, coming from a third world country where like they didn't have enough food to survive, now coming to the US and having food in abundance, like, oh, one of the ways that she showed love was like making me eat and having whatever I wanted available all the time. So I was pretty fat as a kid. But despite that, I was always really active because my mom went to the gym. I played sports. I grew up in the gym. So for me, I've always had a really positive relationship with fitness. And talking about coaching and working with clients, I've realized, man, I think providing that example for our kids is one of the most powerful things that we can do to inspire them to live a healthy lifestyle. Because I've realized that most of the clients that we work with that struggle with consistency, that struggle with enjoying fitness, that struggle with having healthy habits, in many ways, it stems from the fact that they've never had anybody in their life kind of model those behaviors, right? One of the things I'm really thankful
Yeah.
for is the fact that I did have that in my life. It sounds like you did as well.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's spot on. And I mean, that's a kind of open ended conversation there about like just what you see growing up. But I don't know. I think at the same time, it's like growing up where you have really bad habits and really bad examples being set by you from parents or guardians. It's like that can be just as strong as a driver to fitness as you seeing it growing up because you're like, I know what I don't want. And I don't want to have those habits at all. Right. It's like I want to set a different example for my kids. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting how people find fitness because it is a variety of different ways. But yeah, I mean it's a great thing to find for a variety of reasons.
Let me ask you this, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about before we hopped on here, that most people think they need a better meal plan, some more recipes, maybe a better workout plan. And I laugh, not because those things aren't important. You and I would both agree that those things are very important, right? But I think a big part of being a good coach is inspiring change and
Hmm.
helping your clients actually believe that they can achieve the things that they want to achieve. And I think it all starts from um, being super clear on what you actually want, why it's important, how that impacts your overall quality of life, which are oftentimes things that people don't necessarily think about, right? Just like, I want to lose 20 pounds, but they never think about why or how that's actually going to positively impact their life or what sacrifices or changes they need to make. How important is it, do you think, to be super clear on your why and your motivating factors to actually make change, specifically with people who struggle to do so?
Dude, I think that's the most I think that's the question you should be answering almost before you set goals because to me that's the foundation for everything. And I always tell especially clients that or potential clients that I'm talking to on a call, we'll go over goals and it's all the same, lose body fat, gain muscle, mobility, energy, all these different things, right? And I always tell them I'm like respectfully everybody wants that, right? That's not unique. But what is unique is why is this important to you? Like what is the net result of these things? Because if you can identify the why, I always encourage people to say, make the why something outside of yourself. So for example, with you, you have two kids or one?
Yeah.
right? So it's like, if your why is just, oh, I just want to look better in the mirror to, have a six pack and feel good at the beach. It's like, whenever you wake up and you don't feel like going to the gym, or you don't feel like meal prepping on Sunday, you're letting yourself down. It's just you, you're party of one. But if your why is, well, I need to set an example for my wife and my kids at home, because if I lead them in those good examples, their life will likely look like this one day. And then whenever you don't feel like going to the gym and you don't feel like meal prepping, it's not about your emotions, it's about setting your family up for success. So if you have your why identified, it creates like that firm foundation of why you're doing all these habits and all these actions and all these things that are very uncomfortable. And if your why is just this surface level vain thing of like, I want to have a six pack and look good, it's like that doesn't hold much weight whenever you really don't feel like doing the work. And you're gonna not feel like doing the work at some point, because most of the days suck. And having that why identified is like step number one in the entire process. So, um,
Such a great way to put it. And I mean, there's so much to unpack there, man. From the perspective of like people who are in a very unhealthy state, who want to make a change. And I think getting super clear around your motivating factors and your why and your desires helps you stay consistent and stay the path, because it's hard, man, right? I think for us it's a little easier because again, we've been doing a lot of these things since we're kids. So it's ingrained in us in many ways, but people that don't have that, it's hard, man. It's behavior change is difficult, right? And then there's also
yeah,
the opposite side of that, because I've had many conversations with clients where they say they want a particular goal, but in reality it's just not that important, right? Like for me, and I talk about this all the time on social media, would I like to be as jacked and ripped as you are? Absolutely. But it just takes away from some of the things that are important to me at the moment, right? So it's like, so I'm not. But I think for me, having clarity around what my actual priorities and goals are at the moment helps me feel more comfortable with not having a visible six pack, for example, which I used to have when I was younger. And I feel like a lot of people get into this pattern, Patrick, of comparing to themselves to where they were 10 years ago. And they don't realize that they're a different person, different priorities, different goals. And all of those things impact in many ways the way you look as well, right?
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think the hardest part, I would say, with a lot of people is that, especially whenever they're working with somebody like you or me, like they have trust that what we're advising them on is likely the best approach to it, but they don't have proof of concept for their self, right? We can say, hey, if you go to the gym 3-4 days per week, if you eat these meals, whatever it is, and if you do this for like 60 days and you're at least 80% compliant, you're going to see XYZ results, right? But until they have that full loop come in place where they're like, oh, Joey told me this, I did this, I got this. They don't have that, like, that belief and that concrete proof that what they're doing is actually going to pay off. So initially it is very much this like trust fall type experience with clients where they're like, I'm believing what you say, even though I personally don't have that strong conviction internally to know why, right?
Yeah.
But once they see it, I feel like it's like a light switch with clients, because they're like, "Oh, I get it." I'll have some clients where their body weights will yo-yo like this. They're like, "I don't know why my body weight isn't going down." And I'm like, "Well, I know why, right?" It's like your caloric intake, or maybe there's some hormonal changes if it's women during their different phases of their cycle. But like, for the most part, it is as simple as calories in, calories out. Now, there's
Yeah.
a lot of different variables within that, but I just think people they under, I don't know what the word would be. I guess their oversight on a lot of things is very high, and they don't pay as much attention to the details as they think that they actually need to. And it's a learning curve as much as it is, skill set and all those different things. But yeah, I think that like that proof of concept for people is one of the hardest things to get. But once they get it, it usually clicks and it makes compliance a lot easier for them.
When you say
I don't even
proof
know if
of
that.
concept, like ability to actually progress following the recommendations you're sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really is like you're saying, hey, just trust me. Right. And it's like, if you, I mean, use the analogy of a relationship. If you just started dating somebody brand new and they're like, oh, I'm a very loyal person, I've never cheated on anybody. You're sitting there and you're kind of like, all right, like I kind of believe you, right? But after 4 or 5 years of dating that person, you're like, wow, they actually are loyal. They actually don't cheat. Your belief and your trust in that process with them grows so much stronger over time. Now, obviously a different example, but like people need they need time to actually prove that what we're saying is actually going to be effective. And we can post a million before and after photos and a million client video testimonials, but until it's true for that individual person, it's not like reality to an extent,
Yeah,
right?
uh,
So
100%. Um, that trust factor is hard to build, right? And I think this is part of the reasons. One of the questions I always ask a potential client before saying like, "Yep, let's do this," is like, "Are you actually coachable?" Because
mhm.
it's a character trait that's so incredibly important. And I would say a lot of people do their best to be coachable, but there's always the type of person that, despite saying they want to be coachable, are just very resistant to actually getting advice that contradicts potentially some of their internal beliefs, right? And that type of client can be really difficult to work with. I was actually going to ask you, how long have you been doing the coaching thing for now?
Uh, man, 8 years. 20. I got certified in 2017. Um, so yeah, 8, 9 years now.
Okay. I'm curious to hear from your perspective. I'll share mine after. What has changed in your belief of like what it takes to be a good coach from when you started to where you are now? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah. That is a very hard question to answer. I feel like I think initially you have all these you're very convicted in what you think is the right approach for things, right?
Yeah.
But with each client, that's going to be different. And I think instead of trying to jam the right information down somebody's throat and tell them this is the right way to do it, you have to get them on the same team as you first. So it kind of takes that initial discovery phase, like we were talking about, of like identifying the why and maybe having a few coaching moments of like, hey, why do you feel that way, or what do you think is the right approach, right? And getting on the same page with somebody, opposed to it being like this, you're the client, I'm the coach, listen to me, it's my way or the highway type dynamic. I think it's really easy for people to be super convicted in what they think is right, and if somebody disagrees with that, it's like, oh, you're the problem. But it's like, as a coach, it's our job to help somebody get on the same team and on the same path as us. And again, that takes a lot of emotional maturity and patience with people. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest changes that I've had to make as a coach. And I would imagine one of the things people struggle most with as a coach from somebody that's outside of myself.
Dude, very in line with that. I was going to say when I first started coaching, it was probably around 5 years ago or so. I was just getting done with my PhD, and I was getting into the coaching space, and I was like, I have a PhD. I know a lot, so I'm going to be able to help a lot of people because I know exactly what to tell them, like that what they need to do, right? And part of it is just like being naive, like not having much experience. And then part of it is just assuming that everybody operates the same way I do. Because I'm the type of person, I'm very like information driven. When I want to do something, I do it. The only thing that will prevent me from doing it is like not knowing how to do it. So I very much seek information, right? But I realize that people who struggle with health and fitness, like that's part of it, but it's just part of it, right? And usually it's not
Yeah.
even the bigger part of it because oftentimes people have decent understanding of what they need to do. Like they understand what a calorie deficit is. They understand that they need to eat a little bit healthier, exercise a little bit more. They're just not doing it consistently. And the longer I've been doing this, the more I've realized that these softer skills are really important, right? Like developing a relationship with a person, getting them to actually trust you, which is what you were bringing up, right? Encouraging change one step at a time. Like initially, if somebody told me they were doing this keto diet and doing these like magical fat burning workouts, I would just be like, hey, that's stupid. Don't do that. Do this. And I realized like
Right.
a lot of people just like, don't respond well to that. So I would be like, hey, that's a baseline. Let's just change this one little thing. And now that that works, let's change another thing. And it's so much more about the interpersonal skills than it is the actual information that you're giving. That's, I think, the biggest shift
Yeah.
I've experienced by far.
Yeah. And a lot of it's ego too. I mean, you think about it, it's like you finish your PhD and you're like, dude, I did it. I am the guy,
Yeah.
right? If you need information, I got it for you, right? But it's like to your point of, the detox tea or a vibration plate, like instead of just being like, dude, save your money, that's so stupid to do, you're telling that person you're an idiot essentially, right? Whereas now, I may still have some of that flavor in my delivery of like, hey, kind of stupid to do, but like, what made you get a vibration plate?
Yeah.
And then you'll help them come to their own conclusion that that was a bad decision instead of you telling them that they're an idiot, right? And I found that kind of I guess team type discovery of why we're doing certain things is so much more valuable than us just telling somebody the right or the wrong answer.
Yeah, 100%. I want to talk a little bit more objectively about your philosophy and how you approach nutrition and training and talk about some of those things. I know you had mentioned one of the things that you really like talking about is the difference between like daily caloric consumption versus weekly averages. Not being, I think it just comes down to the whole concept of like zooming out and maybe not being so hyper fixated on the day-to-day fluctuations, whether it's in caloric intake, body weight, any of those little variables, right? Do you mind sharing a little bit more
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to your point of not everybody operates how we operate,
Mhm.
a lot of it stems from that because I probably started doing the daily average method without calling it the daily average method about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now at this point. And the first, I would say 5, 6 years of my coaching, it was very much this like, what is the best approach? Everybody's doing that. Like, I don't care what you think, we're doing the best approach, right? And then it kind of got to a point where I was just like, man, why why are these people not doing things perfectly like I am doing? Right. And then I kind of took a step back and I said, hey, what is everybody's approach towards nutrition? And it's this. It's I need to be perfect every single day and I can't enjoy social gatherings and life events. And if I do either of those things, I suck and I might as well quit and restart on Monday. And I was like, all right, how can we kind of, call it hedge this in a way where we can create a nutrition plan each week that allows some form of deviation without completely ruining progress. And that's where I said, I just took the bodybuilding concept of, people do carb cycling or calorie cycling. And I said, hey, why don't I just take that same approach and just apply that to the weekends and look at things from a weekly average base as opposed to a daily caloric intake basis. And whenever I started teaching that to clients, they were like, oh my God, that just like that sounds awesome. Like I have more calories for the weekends. I don't have to be perfect. I can have some flexibility. Even though at the end of the day, the net result was the same daily caloric intake, it was their perspective shift on nutrition, which was that I can have more calories on the weekends and enjoy, Cindy Lou Who's birthday party at the bar, restaurant, whatever it is. And not every day is the same monotonous thing. I'm going to have some variation from a week to week basis. And it was almost like overnight, people just, they got on board with it and they said like, I like that. Like, let me keep doing that. And I think the same way that people like they want variation with their workouts from time to time. I think people want some variation with nutrition on a weekly basis as well. And again, whenever it comes back to compliance, like compliance, Stan Efferding, it's like compliance is the science. And if I can get somebody to comply to a program, even if it's a mediocre program, their results are so much better than low compliance and this, PhD level program, call it, right? So that's how I coined the whole thing of like, all right, instead of looking at this perfect day, it's like on a daily basis, on average, what are we doing? Right. And if we
Yeah.
can be on track, we'll be in a really good spot. So yeah, if somebody has 15,000 calories across the course of the week, we may have 2,000 calories Monday to Thursday and then 3,000 calories
Mm.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Not the math isn't going to check out on that example, but you get the point of the approach.
Yeah. No, I like that, man. It's first off, Stan is the man. I love Stan.
Dude, goat. Like the goat. If somebody does not know who Stan Efferding is, you go look up. Is it the White Rhino? Is that what he calls himself? The White
Yeah.
Rhino?
Not yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just the Rhino. Anyways,
Maybe it's just the White
Stan the
Rhino.
Rhino
Point
Efferding.
taken.
He was actually one of the first guests I ever had on the podcast. And for me, it was kind of
Wow.
like full circle because he was one of the first people that I used to watch on YouTube back when I was like, dude, I don't know, man, like early high school. Talking about like
Yeah.
well over like a decade and a half ago, probably like 15, 16 years ago, when he would do the 10-minute rants, when he would walk and just
Yeah.
record himself and post that on YouTube. And
Yeah.
then when I started getting some traction on social media, he had his vertical diet meal plan, and I partnered with him as like an affiliate. And then I was like, let me just see if he'll come on the podcast. And he did. And I was like fucking starstruck, man. And then he actually started listening to the podcast. Like he would just like randomly tell me he was listening to an episode. And I was like, dude, this is the coolest thing in the world. I don't know if he still does, but if
Dude.
by any miracle, Stan, if you're listening to this, thank you for everything you've done for our industry, man. I really appreciate it. And anybody listening who doesn't know who Stan is, just look up Stan Efferding. You don't even need to know how to spell it. It'll just pop up. He's the goat.
Dude, the OGs like Stan. I mean, you even think of R.I.P. John Meadows. Like
Yeah.
just a lot of the old school guys. I mean, just the difference between them and then the modern era of that caliber of a person in terms of like strength, physique, all that stuff. Like the demeanor is just so different. I think there's some good eggs out there now, but like I feel like before you think of a guy like Stan or John Meadows, it's like everything was so much humility and just love and respect for the sport. And I don't know, it just I miss that era of
Yeah.
influencing. Call
Well,
it
I think
anyway.
what is rewarded nowadays has changed, right?
True.
So
True.
at the end of the day, people are going to do what's rewarded most because everybody to an extent has a financial agenda and wants to grow their business and their brand and all that stuff. And I just think, unfortunately, the things that are being rewarded nowadays to grow your brand aren't necessarily the best things to actually promote or reward. We'll leave it at that, right? Whereas I feel like back in the day, 15, 20-ish years ago, when I don't think even Instagram was really a thing, it was primarily YouTube, right?
YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just like there weren't many creators, so you could kind of just go on and nobody knew what like being an influencer was. So you could kind of just be yourself, and most
Yeah.
people would be attracted to somebody who's like, "Oh, that's a good person, and they're humble, and I like their personality." Dude, for me, it was Stan, John Meadows. I was really into powerlifting for a while, so Johnny Candido, loved Johnny Candido's videos. I used to watch like the way back in the day OG Chris Jones videos. I'm sure you probably know who Chris Jones
Yes.
is back when
Yeah.
he had Physiques
Yeah.
of Greatness. I used to watch like the first guy I ever watched was Scooby. I don't know if you know who Scooby is. His
No.
YouTube was like Scooby 098735, like just a bunch of random numbers. And he was this just like swole dude in his 50s who would just like post short home workout videos because I started training at home. He stopped YouTube for like years and then he just came back recently. But I definitely missed that era without a doubt. I feel like that was and who was the what's his name, dude? He started the Rascal Apparel. Long hair.
I don't know.
Did you know who it is if I brought him up? But anyways, those are definitely some of the better. And dude, I used to watch YouTube videos for like 8 hours a day, man. That's an exaggeration, but a couple hours most days just watching fitness content. It
Just
was
watching
fun.
somebody like make their oatmeal in the morning and do random bodybuilding stuff. You're like, why do I care about this? But it was I don't know. It was a different time.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying though, I think it's the idea of what I always try to help clients develop is sufficient structure and restraint so that they can progress, but not so much structure and restraint that it feels restrictive, right? And I think this is why having a flexible approach is super helpful because it's not being flexible for the sake of being flexible. It's not flexible because you can't be more disciplined and you're just a little bitch, which is kind of like the mainstream message on social media, which is ridiculous. It just really does help with adherence long term, right? Whether it's calorie cycling or whatever it is, right? Because I think the principle of cycling can be applied to calories, can be applied to physical activity, can really be applied to anything. It just helps so much with the psychological perspective of it's okay if I'm not perfect. If I didn't do as well today, maybe I could just try a little bit harder tomorrow and that'll make up for it. And having that balance across the week. So I'm a big fan of it. It's Pat. This is do you go by Pat by the way or just Patrick?
Patrick,
Yeah.
PJ,
All
Pat.
right. All
I
right.
don't
Cool.
care.
You
Pick
sure?
your poison. Yeah, yeah,
I was gonna say
truly.
one thing you'll pick up from me, dude. My mind goes at like a million miles per hour. So I'm always like rambling in different directions. But when I first started this coaching thing, people would ask me like, "What do you think about calorie cycling? What do you think about calorie cycling?" And people talked a lot about it from the perspective of like, it's good for your metabolism, right? And like having high calorie days and low calorie days keeps your metabolism fast because you're feeding it more. And I'm like, guys, all of that is complete crap. But from a practical perspective, I'm a huge fan of it. So I'm happy to hear that that's something, it sounds like you implement that with pretty much every client as a primary principle in your way of actually coaching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just think, I mean, to your point of like how your brain operates, I, would very say I'm like undiagnosed ADHD. And I think people just get bored too of doing the same stuff all the time. So it's like, yes, it is effective, the approach itself, but it also creates some level of excitement of like, dude, go get a Chick-fil-A number one on Saturday and you're literally on plan. It's not a cheat meal. You're on plan. And then like, oh shit, I can get Chick-fil-A and I'm good. I'm like, yeah, And I have some clients that I have a wide variety of clients. I have some clients that have 200 pounds to lose. I have some clients that are trying to shave off 10 minutes on a marathon, right? And it's just interesting how different people view nutrition, but the common theme is that like you can't have certain types of food or you can't have high calories. I'm just like, guys, you're just you're so far from the truth of what is factual and what is not. And I try to bridge that gap between like what is realistic and effective versus what is mainstream social media telling you that you should be doing. So
Dude, I would say we could talk about this the whole episode, but I guess we are talking about it the whole episode.
yeah,
Um, with this whole idea of, and in your emphasis on like focusing on weekly averages versus daily averages goes very much in line with this as well. It's like so many people focus on not just perfection, which your approach allows for some flexibility, but they also hyperfixate on what they can't do, right? I can't
right.
eat this. I can't eat that. I need to eliminate that. And unfortunately, when you approach nutrition, or I would say really anything in life, from the perspective of what should I not do, you're not actually putting effort and focus on what you should be doing, right? So with our clients, when we start working with a client, particularly somebody who has a background of like yo-yo dieting and following this strict diet and then following off and then following that strict diet, and they have this very dichotomous mindset around food, and they really think that certain foods are bad, we actually, like the first 8 weeks that we work with somebody, we call it our foundational phase, and we're just focusing on habits. We do not focus on what not to eat. We do not focus on this food's good, this food's bad. We just focus on the habits that we need to do every day. And it's funny, man, people will drop 15, 20 pounds without focusing on dieting, right? We're just saying, like,
Mhm.
hey, make sure we're getting 30 to 50 or 60 grams of protein per meal, depending on the person's size. And let's make sure we do that. I don't care what else you have on your plate. Let's just do that. We did that for a week. Okay,
Right.
now let's add one serving of vegetables to your plate. And let's do that for a week. And now that we did that, now let's talk about fruits and veggies. Now let's talk about a daily step goal. And we only focus on what you need to do. And the cool thing is that like you naturally do less of the stuff that you quote unquote shouldn't be doing, but it's not nearly as psychologically taxing, right? It tends to be a way more positive experience, way more enjoyable. You actually focusing on developing the habits that are going to help you sustain the results. Because the other part of it, PJ, it's like, somebody, let's say they go to Starbucks in the morning and they have, I don't know, whatever 500 calorie quote unquote coffee. That's not even fucking coffee. They have that and like a muffin, and that's their breakfast. And they know objectively that that's not good, or that they shouldn't be doing that every day or whatnot. And now they're like, all right, I'm going to go on a diet tomorrow. I'm not doing that anymore. And their whole approach is like, I need to stop doing this one thing. Well, like, what are you replacing it with? A lot of people don't even
Right.
really give it that thought, right? So I like the perspective of let's focus on what we need to add and do rather than what we don't need to do. I think paired with the aspect of flexibility is typically a winning recipe for most people.
Well, yeah, I mean, dude, to your point, people are like, "Oh, I need to avoid red 40. I need to avoid seed oils. I need to avoid X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, you're not even following anything on a consistent basis with nutrition, let alone hitting daily protein, daily fiber, taking sets in the gym anywhere near your
Mm.
physical potential for failure. But you're so worried about these 100 other things, random stuff online, but you're not even doing 3, 4 of the most basic things to make the most amount of progress for yourself. And it's like people just try to distract themselves of what to avoid instead of actually doing the actual work that they know they need to be doing.
I think
I'm just like,
uh, part of it, I think, is confusion because there is
true.
like to their
Yeah.
credit, there is so much crappy info, right? And the thing is, for example, I sympathize with people when it comes to some of these things because, for example, when I was starting my business and I didn't know anything about business, I had nobody in my family to teach me anything about business. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I didn't have any friends who were business owners. I kind of just got thrown into the water, for lack of a better term, and started doing it. Dude, I fell for so much crappy business info online and hired business coaches that were just absolute trash because I just didn't know any better. And I feel like going through those experiences are unfortunate but almost necessary. So I do think there's an aspect of that. I think an aspect of it too is just like deferring responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Of like
Yeah.
you just mentioned, focusing on the seed oils or this or that. But people inherently know that maybe those things matter, maybe they don't, but they know they're not doing the healthy habits consistently, right? What I
Right.
usually like to teach people is that even if some of these variables matter to an extent, let's say seed oils or food dyes or whatever it is, because I also don't like telling people, hey, it has zero impact, because the truth is we don't really know. But what we do know is that there's a massive hierarchy of importance, right? And at the base of the pyramid, it's like the basic habits that we need to have in place. And usually, what I like to tell clients is like, these other variables, it's not that I don't want to tell you they have no impact on what you're trying to achieve. But if we're not doing this stuff at the bottom of the pyramid, like let's not even start to worry about whether you bought organic chicken or not, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think to your point, yeah, they're from the person, I guess, who I would say does not have a coach or doesn't have like direct resources to somebody that is actually knowledgeable around them, there is a lot of confusion where they're more in this like risk avoidance type state. But somebody working one on one with a coach, assuming it's a good coach, which nowadays is unfortunately hard to find, but like
I will say there's also
we
a lot of really great people out there though, and more so over time. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I agree there's a lot of bad stuff out there. But I also see a lot of smaller creators that just are doing a really, really awesome job. And I think it's also important for people like you and I to extend to promote those people, man, because and I
true.
feel guilty of this as well. A lot of my content is obviously the reaction based stuff, breaking stuff down and debunking shit because people like it and it gets attention.
Yeah. It sells now.
But unfortunately, the good people just don't get the amount of eyeballs as the quote unquote bad actors. Anyways.
Yeah. No, to your point though, it's even like with, or like female influencers, I've seen a lot like more and more girls that are like, it's not all, hey, look at my butt type content, right? So you see a lot more of that coming out, and then a lot more science-based influencers too that are going against the grain of just kind of talking about all the hot topics just to sell a program. So there's definitely more and more of that, I will say. Like I feel like it's been a lot better recently. So I am glad you called that out because I think, yeah, sharing more of that stuff and spreading more of the good, eventually, I think it's going to overcome a lot of the nonsense out there where if you are spewing BS, it's like, dude, people are going to call you out and you're going to know relatively quickly now, especially with how popular all of the reaction videos are, especially somebody like you doing it. It's like, my God, that's like one of my biggest fears is seeing myself as part of one of the reaction videos on somebody's pages. I'm like, oh my God, I'm toast. Like if Brett Contreras ever posted one of my videos and was like, yeah, this is just total nonsense, I would probably just delete my Instagram account, truthfully.
That's too
But
funny.
anyways, no, I do think like with working with one-on-one people, it is like, hey, once we cover the basis of our approach to nutrition and our approach to workouts, and we're taking care of the fundamentals, it's like, sure, we can talk about maybe supplementation and a few other tweaks we can make that are like more like fine tuning things, but until those bases are in place, like I truthfully don't really care about anything else, because those are the needle movers for us. So
Yeah,
it's
and
tough.
even talking about this of more important variables than others, this one breaks my heart to admit because my degree is formally in clinical nutrition. But I think the training piece is so much more important than your diet, dude, specifically for body
Yeah,
composition outcomes. And what I see with most people, how many times do you get a client and they're like, man, I eat pretty healthy. And I'm not really overweight. I just like, have a little bit of flab and not much muscle definition. It's like, and they focus so much on the diet piece, but it's like, bro, you're not even training at like 5 RPE. And it's like, for those of you guys listening in, RPE, just a measure of intensity. It's like the training piece is so, 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 so important. You need to train consistently, yes, but you also really need to train hard. I think people don't understand how difficult it actually is to be able to make progress in the gym, especially after your like first year or two of training, right? It's like it really needs to feel, and I hate saying this because I don't want to like demotivate people from training, but it needs to feel like you're almost dying the vast majority of your sessions if you want to make meaningful progress. And people just don't understand that, man, unless you work with a coach who teaches you how to do that. Because I think it's a very I'll say important skill, but it's a skill nonetheless that you need to develop, right? I see
yeah,
it not just from the
yeah,
people that don't train, but also from the people that train consistently and aren't getting results. So like, well, I go to the gym. It's like, all right, how much how much stronger have you gotten on your squat in the past 3 months? It's like, well, I don't know because I don't really track it. It's like, all right, that's the first problem, right? We really need to optimize the training piece. And if we're not optimizing the training piece, if you have body composition goals, I hate to say this, but it's almost like don't even worry too much about your diet. Like make sure you get some protein in, make sure you're not way overeating. But let's dial in training before we even focus on the other stuff.
yeah. That's such a great point. And yeah, with I have a lot of my clients that they're more in like that body recomp phase where it's like, yeah, we might have 10 pounds to pull off, but
Yeah.
I have all of them send me training videos, and 9 times out of 10, I'm like, hey, your technique looks good, but we are like 50% of the load
Mm-hmm.
that I would want you to be using. And I think the hard piece behind that is like in their head, they're like, it was hard. It was a hard set,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I know it felt hard, but what your brain says is hard versus what your body is physically capable of doing are two completely different things. And especially if you take that thought process on something like a leg extension, it's like, man, it burns like hell with 30 pounds on after 10, 15 reps, right? So it's like actually teaching somebody what their body is capable of and what that looks like. It's very, very hard because it is hard. Like it's hard even at an RPE of 6, even like that's you finish that and you're like, damn, it wasn't,
It's hard.
that didn't feel good,
Yeah.
right? It's hard, but like once you get to that 8, 9, like 10, it's like, holy shit, I didn't even know I could A, lift that much weight, and B, was very, very uncomfortable. Then it's like, cool, yeah, do 2 more sets and then take that same level of intensity across the rest of these 5 exercises in your workout today. And then do that the rest of this week, and then do that for the next 5 years. And it's like, that feels like a really big mountain to climb. But I think once somebody can make that mindset shift, it's like, oh, I get it, right? And I think to your original point of like, people don't realize how much activity and exercise is just crucial for their progress. I think when we look at like the lifespan, especially from like years, I don't know, call it just like 0 to 25 for simplicity's sake, daily activity levels, even something as simple as step count, it's very high. You're walking to class, or maybe you're doing social things with friends, you're going to bars on the weekends, or whatever it is. Like you're moving around just much more in your day-to-day life. And then as you get into work and kids and you're working from home, and then you go to the gym and you're doing a strength training program and you're training at RPE of -2, it's like you're not even moving your body in a meaningful way that's going to burn many calories each day on top of your basal metabolic rate, let alone have enough of a stimulus to tell your muscles that, hey, we need to grow and get stronger for this person because they're really working hard in the gym. And then you pair that with poor nutrition, and it's like you're gonna feel like you're trying really hard, but nothing is gonna change, which can be very discouraging for people. But it's tough. It's tough. And it's more than one variable, right? You can have somebody that is dominating the activity level, like take an ultra runner, for example. Like it's really hard for that person's diet to be so bad that they are gaining weight if they're running 50 miles per week,
And
right?
on top of that, because people think so much about like processed food or organic or whatever it is, that person can have the quote unquote shittiest diet and it's not having any really objective negative impacts on their health. I think people think that food quality matters way more than it actually does. And it really doesn't. And I hate to say that. I wish I could say that it plays a huge role because, again, I got my degree in nutrition. I wish I could tell somebody like, hey, you have to eat organic because non-organic food actually does have all these negative impacts, but it just does not fucking matter. And the main negative impact of processed food is that you just like eat too much of it. Right? Like that's
Mhm.
literally the only real negative impact of these things beyond maybe some very, very, very minimal impact of particular preservatives or additives or things like that. But it's like, man, the amount that you'd have to consume to see a measurable negative impact of that can be like erased by exercising an additional 30 minutes per week or something like that, right? What do you think
Yeah.
are really let's do like a rapid fire. Biggest what's the word I'm looking for here? Red flags isn't the right word, but like biggest giveaways that what's the right word I'm fucking looking for, man? What are variables that tell you immediately that somebody's not training hard enough?
Mm. They're one, the total time that it takes to complete the workout.
Yes. That's the same thing I was thinking, dude.
That is number one.
Yeah.
And then number two is, which I kind of leads into number one, but is their rest time in
Yeah.
between exercises.
Yeah.
Like let's say I have two warm up exercises and like six, working, six exercises with three working sets, and it's like 35 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's like hack squat, RDL, leg curl, like some stuff that takes you like 10, 12 minutes per exercise. I'm like, if I would have to fly through that to finish it in 30 minutes.
It'd be impossible. With good intensity, it'd be impossible.
Right.
Unless you're like second and third set, you're doing like 1 or 2 reps versus like 8 on the first one because of how hard you went. It's a
Yeah.
man, it's such a good point. I usually tell clients is like, if your body is not begging you for at least 3 minutes of rest, you're probably not training hard enough.
Especially with like any compound movement. If it's single joint, sure, 2 minutes. But like, I'm like, if you feel like if it's within 90 seconds post set and you're like, oh, I'm good to go, I'm like, you better add like 30% to that. And general rule of thumb for people, I say if you have an exercise with 3 sets, if you finish it in less than 10 minutes, like you really need to look back and say, hey, was that weight enough? Because it should be around 10 to 12 minutes per exercise if you have 3 working sets. That's a decent rule of thumb for stuff.
Not including your warm up, because some people will like warm up and do the 3 sets in 10 minutes, and it's like
Right.
it.
Right.
I understand because you don't have that skill, but it's a dead giveaway that you're not training hard enough. Like you mentioned, specifically on compound movements, your body should be begging you for at least 3 minutes of rest. If you're doing a squat and you rest a minute and you feel like you're ready to go, you're not training hard enough. I'm a bigger fan of adding load than reps personally because I think pushing near failure with a greater rep target or a higher rep target is much more difficult than adding some weight to the bar. I personally like training on the lower rep ranges with heavier weight. Go ahead.
Let's talk about that because that's
Yeah.
a great point. Because one of the things I mentioned was training to failure,
Yeah.
right? And training to failure is something that most people in the gym would say, "Oh yeah, I need to train hard, right,
Yeah.
relative to
Yeah. Yeah.
failure." And it's like, what is failure? What is failure? You don't even know what failure is. Now, the second piece of this is, yes, can we meaningfully, make progress across a wide variety of rep ranges? Like, people say 5 to 20, 5 to 30. It's like, as long as we're getting close to failure, like, we're in a good spot, right?
Yeah.
But if I said, "Hey Joey, we're going to do back squats, right? We're going to do I want you to get one rep shy of total failure. Like, just call it task failure, where your rep is your form isn't totally deplorable and like you're still in good standing, right? If I said, "Hey, I want you to do that for 6 reps," versus "I want you to do that for 25
No, I
reps."
wouldn't be able to.
I said, if I said 6 reps, you would probably pick a weight that was pretty damn close to
Yes.
1 rep shy of failure. But if I said, "I want you to do 25 reps," meaning rep number 26 is total failure, you would be like, "Dude, I don't know." Now, if you're training very high reps, you have a better idea. It's like what weight to even use, but like your ability to gauge 1 rep in reserve, or if you use RPE, it's like your ability to gauge failure in low reps versus high reps. It's so much better. It's so much more predictable in a lower rep range because you're used to training at it. It's more of like a short sighted thing. So
I would also add that one of the reasons why it's so difficult at higher rep ranges to do effectively is because higher rep ranges are so difficult from like just like a burning sensation. Um,
true.
at your level of physical arousal significantly impacts how well you can perform at higher rep ranges on any given day. I don't know if you feel this way, man, but like if I'm doing something above 12, 15 reps, the weight that I use can vary significantly based off how hyped up I feel. Like I can put on a good
Oh,
song
for
and
sure.
bang out another 2 or 3 reps. So it's like, was less than that actually near failure because it felt really difficult and it actually did slow down. Whereas with lower reps, particularly, I really like training 4 to 6, 6 to 8, maybe up to 10, rarely. I enjoy the low rep ranges. Partially it's because I really like powerlifting for years and I train more like a powerlifter. So I know there's some bias there. But for me, whether I'm very hyped up, whether I'm not feeling hyped at all, I know that my training performance is very, very consistent in those lower rep ranges. So I
It's a
like
great
the
point.
fact that you can reduce the variability, at least for me personally, in performance with lower rep ranges. It's like, dude, let's say, I don't know, 315 on a back squat. I know I could do 3 or 4 reps. I know I will be able to do those 3 or 4 reps, whether I'm super hyped up in a good mood or not, if I warm up properly and focus. But now, if I could put 225 on a day that I'm really hyped up, I might be able to get 20 reps. On a day where I'm feeling down, I might be able to get 10, 12 reps. And I just personally have experienced so much more fluctuation in performance when I try to go on higher reps that I'm like, what's the point in the first place? I think part of it might be too because you can like use more momentum in higher reps since you can typically throw the weight around a little more. And when I'm hyped up, I like
Yep.
move a little faster and all that. And like all those variables are kind of irrelevant with the heavier weight because you can't do it because it's just so damn heavy.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more of like an intermediate advanced
Topic.
person that I think would, yeah, right? It's like, you know, Susie Luhu on the street that's like, "What is a back squat?" It's like, I don't want you doing a triple, a 3 to 4 rep set right
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
right? It's like, let's get that movement pattern down first. But yeah, once you got some time, on your feet in the gym, it's like, such a great point. It's like, because if you're doing a lot of high rep sets, it really is like, hey, what is my fatigue tolerance today? Like,
yeah.
how much fatigue am I willing to endure today? Because if you're not feeling very motivated, your tolerance is going to be very, very low. But if you are hyped up, then it's like, yeah, it's going to be very high and it's going to be a great workout. But whether you're feeling great or feeling a little bit less motivated, those 4 to 8 rep ranges, like you can grind it out without having a ton of motivation and still have a great workout.
Dude, talking about this being a more intermediate to advanced topic, uh, complete aside here, my brother-in-law is naturally like the shorter, stockier type of body. Um, in the sense of like his shoulders are broader than mine. He's got really thick joints. Like he is built like a lifter. And he started training with me. Like he wasn't really experienced much with training at all. He actually grew up being a runner in high school, and then he was getting out of shape and he started getting into lifting. Um, I think within like a month, he was like squatting just as much as I was with really good technique, like full range of motion, pausing. And I'm not a
Go
good
for
squatter at
it.
all because you mentioned you play basketball. How tall are you?
6'2".
Okay. You're a tall guy. I'm 6'5" and super lanky. Squatting has always been the worst exercise for me. So when I'm talking
Yeah.
about he was on the same level as me, it's like 275 for triple or five or whatever. But regardless, after a month, it's like, damn, dude, like that's really impressive, right? And then he has the audacity, maybe like, I don't know, man, maybe close to a year into lifting consistently. He calls me because we weren't lifting together at that time anymore. He's like, Joey, I need your help, man. I think I'm like hitting a plateau on squats and stuff. And I'm like, all right, like, what are you doing? He sends me a video, dude, a triple at 405, like ass to grass paused. And I was like,
Insane.
dude, why do you think you're hitting a plateau? He's like, I don't know, man. Like, I've been using this weight for like the past 2 or 3 weeks now. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. You have no idea
Like, that's
what a
like,
plateau actually is. Just like do it for 1 or 2 more weeks. You're going to be able to add another 10 pounds. Like, just keep going.
right?
Yeah.
Dude, on that note though, it's like, you know, I think people always said that they're like, oh yeah, you're a bigger person. You know, your height isn't an excuse. And it's like, if you really break this down from like the biomechanics of the movement, the load that you're moving
Yeah.
compared to somebody that's 5'5" is completely different. And their advantage, I mean, it's if you watch you squat and then go watch like Rich Froning or somebody that's, you know, like 5'5" or whatever, however tall those people are, it's like the movement just looks so much smoother
Yeah.
whenever that person is doing it. You know what I mean? So it's like there's so many big differences there. But yeah, I'm with you on the squat stuff. It's something I try to shy away from because it's not a strong movement. But
You have a
anywho,
pretty damn good squat, though. You definitely have a strong squat. I was going to say, even talking about the rep range stuff earlier, I think this is why it's so important also to understand what kind of like, because I think there's what's optimal scientifically, right? Even when you say like 5 to 30 reps, like sure, objectively, it's all equal. But I think there's also like what's practical for you and what feels good, right?
mm-hmm.
When I say I like training 4 to 6, 6 to 8, is because if you watch any of my when I post training videos, I also really like training with almost like too slow of an eccentric and a full pause. And dude, I have literally looked at a rep of my squat next to a rep of like my wife's squat, and she'll get like 2.5 reps when I do 1 rep. So I
Mm.
feel like I know people talk about like variables like time under tension and all that stuff, but it definitely plays a big role because when I try to do more than 5 or 6 reps on a squat, man, it just feels like freaking cardio with the range of motion, the eccentric, the pause, and all that stuff. So I think it's also the point is that I think it's really important for people to, as they get more training experience, just feel out what rep ranges feel good, what exercises feel good, and lean into that more and more. Obviously, when you first start off, you will have no clue, but I think that individuality is really important, and it's easy to, because I've done this too, fall into the mindset that like you have to do what's optimal scientifically, and then it just like
Yeah.
doesn't even feel good for your body anyways. I'm curious, is there anything you've noticed about yourself when it comes to training? Kind of some of the things that I'm sharing here.
I think just like my approach to training is, I mean, yeah, I try to follow what is most optimal, but at the same time, man, there's something to what do you actually enjoy doing,
Yeah,
right? Some people like higher reps, some people like lower reps, some people like, this lateral raise variation compared to, a cuff cable raise. And it's like, yes, there are things that are more optimal, but at the same time, if you can just stick with what you actually enjoy doing and just go hammer down on that thing and try to get stronger there, your adaptation is just going to be so much higher than you trying to force these movement patterns that may be more optimal. But if you don't enjoy it, it's like, then what's even the point of you go? What's the point of you doing it, right? Unless you're getting on a bodybuilding stage and you really need to have those finite details ironed out. But like, again, for the average person listening to this, like, what exercises or even just overall activity do you enjoy, and go spend a ton of time trying to get better at that specific task. But for me in particular, my approach to training, a lot of it now is more building out for these ultra runs. Like I have a 100K ultra run in April, which is 62 miles, and then I sign up for a 100-mile ultra run in September. So slowly but surely, like my leg days will become non-existent because all my legs will be used for the miles. But I really just try to like, especially now with what I do, with this being both of our, full-time jobs, it can feel like a job being in the gym, recording content sometimes. So I truly just try to stick with what I enjoy doing, for most of the workouts. And I'll just create a program around that. I'm like, cool, here's some movements that sound cool and exciting to me. And sometimes they're novel and they're new because I saw somebody do it on Instagram. I'm like, that makes sense why it's a great movement. Let me try that out for a bit, see if I like it. But yeah, I just really try to stay excited about it all. So
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. Enjoyment is so important. Here's something I've been doing more for enjoyment recently that is definitely quote unquote not optimal. Um, so you brought up a really good point that sometimes training feels like work. And for me, sometimes I cut my training short so I can get back to work. And
yeah.
I really
Mhm.
don't want to do that. But sometimes I feel like it comes from the monotony of training as well, especially when you've done this shit for like over a decade. You can get in your mind of like, man, I've been doing this for 15 years. If I skip a set of my chest press, is it really going to make a difference? So,
You're like, I'm good. I'm
yeah,
good.
the reason I say this is
Yeah.
because so for every major body part, let's say I'm training, and I like doing upper lower splits or full body splits for the most part. So if I'm training upper, it'll be chest, back, shoulders, and some arms all in the same session. And I'll typically do two big movements for the compound movements, and then one exercise for some of the isolation muscles like biceps and triceps and stuff like that. So I'll do like, I don't know, a flat sort of press and incline sort of press for my chest, do 3 or 4 sets for each of those, about 6 to 8 sets for the session. And I found myself just consistently going into the second exercise and just like not wanting to do it, or just like doing two of the
Mhm.
sets and being like, fuck it, this is enough. Like, man, how can I get myself to actually want to do the second exercise fully? And so what I'm doing now is my first exercise is always the same, so I can measure progress. But my second exercise for that muscle group will literally be whatever exercise I feel like doing that day.
Mm.
So it's fun, right? Because sometimes I'll do my bench and I'm like, man, the last thing I want to do right now is some incline bench. But I could do some dips or some push-ups. That sounds fun, right? And then it kind
Right.
of motivates me to stay more consistent. So I would argue that for me, it's a little more optimal because I'm actually more consistent with my training that way.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point too. And I think exercise sequencing, I think, is one of the most important things that most people just don't really think about. And then the second piece of what you just mentioned is, dude, it's not just the physical energy required to have a good set, but the mental energy
Yeah.
to have a good set. Let alone doing that back to back with like similar movements, like a flat barbell press to an incline dumbbell press. It's basically the same pattern, right? And you're kind of like, all right, I just hyped myself up for 3 sets of 5, call it. Now I need to do it again. Whereas if you have a little bit of a switch up, if it's a weight, I know you like doing the weighted dips and pull ups a lot. It's
Yeah.
like if you switch to that, you're kind of like, oh shit, let me try this, right? And it's yeah, it may not be optimal for your total working sets for chest across the course of the week, but it's like for you, it was exciting and it made that workout more enjoyable, right? So I think it's like, yeah, have your basis covered of total working sets for your primary muscle groups across the course of the week. And if you want to have some volume that is more variable day to day or week to week, it's like that you're going to be okay,
Yeah.
right? So
Talking about enjoyment, how'd you get into running?
dude, you know what, man? I as I was coaching clients and I was really pushing a lot of people that said, yeah, man, like, me getting into the gym is uncomfortable or me pushing hard in the gym is challenging. I'm like, yeah, but you got to do it. I kind of just looked back at myself and I was like, there wasn't really anything that I was doing that was like very foreign and uncomfortable for me. I was doing a lot of things that I felt very confident in. And for me, running was always one of those things that I was like, bro, I just hate that. Like, really don't like it. And at the same time, I was like, well, I never run. I never actually tried it and put a training program together for it. So the same thing that I'm preaching clients on, I have to kind of practice what I preach as well. And then I just started doing it by ripping a mile around the block, and I would be toast. Like I felt like I was like basketball high school conditioning class where I was winded. I'm like, this is terrible. And then the idea of running, let alone a half marathon or ultra marathon, like running even 2 or 3 miles at that point, I was like, sounds impossible, right? So I just kept doing it and getting better at it. And yeah, the more you run, the harder you run. It stays hard and it stays very challenging. So that's just how I started rolling with it. And then now I've had people like DM me or clients that are getting into running now as like I've inspired them. And I'm like, shit, like now it's kind of like this identity thing for me where I'm like, I can't stop running now. So I've just continued to build on it. But I really do love it. And I think the community, especially in trail running in particular, it's great. And then, yeah, whenever we talk about the actual, health benefits of it, and whenever we talk about optimal training, if we just pigeonhole ourselves into strength training and all of the good adaptations that come from that, it's like we're missing out on a lot of really good adaptations from a cardiovascular standpoint. And I mean, mitochondria is obviously a big buzzword now, but it's real. It's like there's so many good adaptations that happen from having a large volume of some lower steady state or up to higher intensity sessions for cardio each week as well. So I'm like, whether I was running 30, 40, 50 miles a week, or at least having some kind of baseline, like this cardio, endeavor that I've been on, it's like, it's a part of every single program that I create with clients
Yeah.
and myself now. So, yeah, probably a longer answer than you were expecting, but, yeah, it kind of opened up the door for me of like, all right, what else am I kind of running from that is scary and uncomfortable? And I think it almost like humbled me quite a bit too, of like, all right, I'm going to suck at some things, but I'll get better over time. Right.
Have you felt like you've lost any significant amount of muscle size?
Dude, like none. If anything, I feel like I've gotten stronger because I mean, obviously like my recovery rate is going to be so much higher in between sets. So I almost feel like I can tolerate more volume across the course of the week. I would say the only thing is I would say my legs may be a little bit smaller from like, I don't know. I'm just thinking of like, get very nitty gritty, like the cross sectional area. Like maybe there was a decrease in the actual muscle size, but dude, in terms of strength, like my legs are stronger than ever. And I've been running more than ever. I've probably been doing less volume with my legs more than ever.
It's super interesting
So
because I've heard the
it's been
same
interesting.
thing. I've heard the same thing from a couple of friends of mine that have transitioned from like primarily exclusively just lifting to doing a good amount of cardio. And they're just like, bro, if anything, I'm stronger and bigger. I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe
I
I'll start
feel, I
running.
feel, I feel so much better now, honestly. Like I could never go back to just lifting because I would feel like there's this like out of shape component that I would feel to it.
Yeah.
But and you don't have to run 30 miles per week. Even if you were doing 6 to 10 miles, I think you would feel a really big
Yeah.
shift in that and it would carry over into the gym. Now there's definitely a trade-off of like, if I wanted to be a good runner and actually be competitive, yeah, I would need to probably knock off 15, 20 pounds to be any kind of like decent runner and compete in some of these races. But like, man, I'm just trying to enjoy life and, have a good time doing it. So
When's your next race?
April 11th,
Okay.
that's in Lake Sonoma, California. So
Excited to see how
62
that
miles.
goes. Damn, dude,
Yeah.
60 miles.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Excited.
You do that all
Dude, we got to
nonstop?
get you. Yeah, you do. I mean, you'll do a lot of hiking. It's not just straight running. But they have aid stations, which are basically like a little snack hut every like you like 6 to 10 miles or so. So it's a fun journey, man. And dude, whenever you think about the mindset piece of all of it too, if you do let's say you do a long run, a 60-minute run, you have 60 minutes of, low to mild discomfort. Obviously, if you're newer, it's higher discomfort, but you have 60 minutes of just kind of embracing the suck by yourself in your own mind. So there's some self discovery that comes with the running as well that I've really learned to appreciate.
That's awesome, man. You're definitely, I've been thinking about it for a while of like doing some more structured cardio or something. It's hard also to do everything at once. And I only say that with like the kids and this and that because I always want to do more. And I'm like, fuck, but now with kids, anything that I do takes time away from them as well. But I definitely need to just make some time to do a little bit of cardio because I pretty much have non existent cardio right now besides supersetting exercises, which gets me out of breath. But now you're making me feel like a little bitch.
Yeah, you know, the heart needs more. Heart needs a lot of volume
Yeah.
to actually adapt, not just the extra 30-second superset. But
Yeah.
dude, just start with half a mile before each workout on the treadmill. Set it at like 5:0, which is probably like a 12-11 minute pace
Yeah.
mile. It's just a slow little trot. But I will say with the running, like in the gym, you know, the adaptation there's a lot of obviously the neural adaptation and then the strength component. With running, a lot of the connective tissue, it takes a lot more time
Yeah.
than the actual muscle adaptation to make you feel good. And I think people, they start way too fast, way too hard, and then their hip hurts or their knees hurt. I'm like, bro, you have to really slow roll it.
Yeah.
It's not sexy. It's not fun. You don't feel cool doing it at first because you're running so slow. But like, if you just really slow roll it, give it a couple months, you'll be able to rip around the block for a few miles and be like, that was a little bit challenging, but I'm like, fine, you know, to go about my day. And it just feels really good.
Yeah. I
But
experienced some of
he
that.
has been playing.
I was at my heaviest probably like 2 years ago. I had gotten up to 230. And it's because I was just eating and lifting. That's like I just cared about getting as strong as I can. And I was also my strongest at the time. And then my wife's cousin's husband invited me to play at his church's basketball league. And I grew up playing basketball as my primary sport. I had not played consistently in probably like 3 years, but I'm naturally very competitive. So I went to go play with a bunch of dudes and I just went all out. First week, not too bad. After the second week, just like massive shin splints, knee pain. And I'm like, bro, you can't go from 0 to 100. It's
Yeah,
essentially what I'm trying to
yeah,
say. Um,
yeah.
dude, sorry, you were going to say something. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just gonna say, like, dude, you've just unofficially committed to building up your running now.
Maybe so.
This is
There's a
public declaration.
I want to do it, but with so I used to swim competitively, and anything that feels very repetitive to me, maybe I just need to embrace the suck. I just get in my mind so much. Whereas if I can run doing a sport, totally different ball game. So I've been trying to get a couple guys to play some basketball every week here, but it's tough. Um, Anyways, I'm just making excuses. It's not tough. I just need to do it. I was going to start saying because of this and that. It's like it
No,
doesn't
this is
even matter.
basically a personal development podcast.
Yeah.
Half mile, Monday, Wednesday, Friday before your lift. Add it to the calendar.
All right, dude.
Takes 6 minutes. That'll take you 6 minutes.
Let
It's
me put
easy.
this on my to do list because I definitely need
You're
to
like,
put
you know
that
what?
here
I
inspiring.
regret doing this podcast now.
It's like this
Because
shit's
now
not
I
getting,
have to run.
shit's not getting published, dude.
Damn it.
Jokes aside, though, man, thank you for coming on, Pat. It's been a pleasure. I always tell people like I do these podcasts partially selfishly just to get to know people a little bit better too, because I know you and I have chatted a ton on Instagram, but this is actually the first time we're talking, and it feels like you just know people from social media, anyways. But I appreciate you taking some time to hop on here. I'm only wrapping up because the kids are getting up from a nap, and I know my wife's going to need me in a minute. But this was a ton of fun, dude. This will be, I guess, for the people listening, it doesn't even matter, but it'll probably be out in about a week or so. Do you mind sharing with the listeners where they can find you? And all the links will be down in the description as well.
Yeah. I mean, Instagram's the primary, just pj.morrison, Morrison. Yeah, man, dude, same to you, man. I think like you're probably one of like the OG, call it like Lane Norton style
Yeah.
creators that I'd followed a while back, and I'm like, dude, this is awesome. We need more of this, right? So I've been a big fan of your content for a while. So it's
Thank you, man.
I know we've chatted before, but it's been cool to like formally connect and shoot the shit now that I know you can curse on this podcast. But we'll have to do some deep dives on some of these topics that we talked about because, like you said, like I can really go down a rabbit hole and it's hard for me to contain my thoughts. But it'd be cool to pick some of the topics and be all right. We're going to talk about training programming and how to actually structure this and do more stuff with that. But
I think that
anyways,
would be a great follow up. I would love to do that. We'll plan it for sure.
yeah, cool. All right, man. We'll do good luck with the kids and have a great week. Enjoy your running.
Same goes updated. Same goes to you and all of you guys tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your support as always. If you know somebody that would benefit from listening to the show, I would really appreciate it if you just take a second to share it with them. If not, all good, and I'll catch you in next week's episode. Peace.